We're also watching the price of Solana after technical issues plagued the protocol over the weekend, freezing transactions. Joining us with more on that analysis is CoinDesk Managing Editor for Data and Tokens, Danny Nelson. Danny, good morning. Thanks for joining us. So you were following the story all weekend long. Walk us through what happened.
Yeah, so basically at about midnight in Utah time, I'm in Utah right now, I noted on Saturday night, or Friday night rather, I noticed that there were issues happening with the Solana network, and those issues quickly devolved from a problem where just transactions weren't going through the network quickly into a full outage where nothing was working, no blocks were being produced, no activity was happening, and the validators that actually run the infrastructure that keep the network afloat decided that the only course of action was to perform a restart. And this is reminiscent of a lot of tech outages that Solana had last year. I think it maybe had 5 to 10 different outages last year, had some in 2021 as well. And it's just another example of issues that the Solana network has been having in staying operational, which has been a pretty big issue for the community.
So my understanding of something called a fat block might have been the catalyst of all this, and that they're investigating. Explain what that is.
Yeah, so it's a little hard to explain what it is because they're not for sure certain that the fat block was the cause. But one leading theory about how this went down, well, there are two things. On the day that it went down, hours earlier, the network had basically reached supermajority to move to an upgraded software version, v1.14 over v1.13, and it just so happened that shortly after that change, the network went down. Now, the developers who are looking into this noticed that there was just a fat block with a lot of data, I believe, and I'm not an expert on this matter specifically, was attempted to propagate through the network. It just was so large, I think that it just gummed up the works, slowed everything down. But again, they're still looking into what caused this, and there's no definite culprit just yet.
What has been the reaction from users, from companies that use Solana, and the response from either Anatoly Yakovenko, creator of Solana, or other folks in Solana Labs?
Well, for Solana Labs, it's been an all hands on deck in just trying to keep this thing afloat. They haven't really had any mea culpa moments yet. They're still in investigation mode. The market, I should say, has hardly reacted to the news. The price of Sol dropped only a little bit when the outage first happened, maybe partly because people's funds were stuck. But in the intervening time, it actually has rallied a little bit. I think it was up 6% recently. So the market's really not been fazed by this, which has been interesting to see. Although from the DeFi community, this is the thing that will hurt the most, because if you're a DeFi app on Solana and Solana is down, well, then you're down too, and there's nothing you can do about it. So this has caused some consternation among the DeFi developers who've been saying, well, why are we putting so much faith into a network that can't even stand up straight?
Yeah, there have been outages before. Last year, we reported on several of those, as you mentioned. This year, there's now a couple of them in just one weekend. What's the general reaction by the community? I've seen some positive, like, oh, that's great, they're telling us everything that's happening. But at the same time, long-term effect on faith, as you mentioned, and are we seeing grumblings out there now that this is one's kind of upset about and might change their mind about going forward with Solana development?
Well, it's a little too soon to tell for this specific incident, whether this one is going to make a change that the others hadn't. I will say that since this outage has occurred, there have been some rather prominent voices that have already left the Solana community that are coming back into the discourse and talking about just how difficult it is for developers to accept this message that, well, the network goes down and we're working on it. So time will tell. And then over time we'll be able to see what the true effect of this is.
Again, whenever we ask Anatoly, his response for this, he says, well, Twitter was down when it was growing, and Nevertheless, this is a whole network that infects a whole ecosystem of dApps, developers, DeFi. It's like the internet going down. It affects way more. Well, it affects businesses. A big deal. All right, Danny, thank you so much for your reporting. That was CoinDesk Managing Editor for Data and Tokens, Danny Nelson.